Well, it's over. Damn it, man. That was I'm glad I waited a couple of days and didn't record this on Friday night. Friday night, because it'd probably sound a lot different than what this episode is going to be. As I record, it's on my day off. It's Tuesday, May 16th, 1 p.m. about. So I'm glad I waited a few days. But the Knicks, as we all expected, it's somewhat booted from the postseason by losing Game 6 of the conference semifinals to the Heat, 96-92. And we're going to talk about that here in episode 525 of the podcast. Let's get to it. Welcome to BD4, an RJ Carbone podcast. BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. BD4 is a 5-star show on Apple Podcasts, also available in video format on YouTube and Spotify. So thanks for stopping by, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Champion of the world, turning, looking, see ya!
Anthony for three, bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied! Time!
Penetrates, creates, and showing some dexterity as well with the left hand.
Yankees win!
It's funny, man, because I look at myself as a sports fan, and I say I definitely matured. Let me change this. It's actually episode 525 here. I believe I have matured as a sports fan. Because just a couple of years ago, if my team Knicks, I guess not the Knicks, but the Yankees a couple of years back, if they lost in the postseason, or even if the Knicks lost a big game or something, Knicks, Yankees, I know, because the Knicks haven't played many big games in the past, but if my sports team lost a big game, and let's say 3-4 years ago, even not that long ago, I'm very pissed off. I'm angry after the game. I'm upset. I'm very irrational. I've kind of changed since then. I've grown, I guess you want to say, because I've noticed maybe this is a coping mechanism, but I've noticed after the Yankees have lost in the playoffs the last year or so, and now after the Knicks on Friday night lose to the Heat, I find myself looking right to the positive. And again, I think that's like a coping mechanism maybe. But for the Knicks on Friday night when they lost, I go, well, it was a hell of a season, and I was in a good mood. It was weird. It was really weird. I was in a good mood because all I did was reminisce and talk about, well, hey, they weren't expected to do shit. I went right to being rational. There was no period of me being irrationally angry. And maybe part of that was also because I expected this to come. I had Miami in 6 at the start of the series, and that's exactly what happened. But even with the Yankees, if they lose a playoff game, I don't get angry because I knew that was expected to happen. But in the past, Yankees, Knicks lose big games, and I'm pissed off. I'm throwing shit. I'm the Italians coming out at me. I gotta say, man, I wasn't. It's weird. I'm still frustrated. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm still, there's still some things that I wish went differently. But this, we'll talk about it all, man. Let's get right into it. No need to waste time. Episode 525 of BD4. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. If you are new here to the channel, to the podcast, wherever, whichever platform you're using to listen to this or watch this on, you can find us on the usual platforms for your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you want to watch the video format of the show, it's on YouTube as well. And you can follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter that I use from time to time at BD4Pod. I'm on my Instagram a lot at BD4 Pod. And I'm on Facebook every night bitching about the Yankees. You can find me there, BD4. And I have a blog that I write. You go to bd4blog.com. I'm occasionally on there, not too much. I believe the last article I wrote was about like the Knicks beating the Magic or some shit in the regular season this past year. But let's get into it. Let's stop wasting time. This was tough. Again, I got to change the title here. This is still from Game 5. The Knicks. Hold on here. What should we title this? Knicks drop Game 6 to conclude their season. That'll be good enough. Let's do that. Knicks drop Game 6 to conclude their season. And these numbers aren't even right. Man, I didn't even fucking set this up, did I? Whatever. We'll stay on this page. If you're listening to the podcast, that means nothing. So let's get into it. Stop wasting time. The Knicks lose this 96-92. It was a crushing loss. It was very competitive. The game was competitive from the get-go. Yeah. The Knicks even had a bit of a lead early on in the game. It didn't last long. They couldn't sustain it. And from there, they were kind of just like one step behind Miami the rest of the way. In the fourth quarter, the game seemed to be over with about 6 or so minutes left. I was, you know what, man? I did get a little bit angry. I turned my TV off for a minute or two, and then someone told me turn it back on. They were making a run because somehow the Knicks climbed back in it with that resiliency that they've showed all season. And it was a 2-point game in like the final minute or something. And then you see Jalen Brunson. Obviously, he was beyond incredible. He was unbelievable this entire game, this entire postseason, this entire season. He's been an incredible Knick, and I can't wait to see what he could do for this team in the future. But I can't lie. I got to say that costly turnover, it bothered me. And I'm not going to lie to you and say it didn't put a stain on the night. And this was a night that had the entire weight of the season on, the weight of the entire season. It was like Starks-like with what was it, the layup? I don't know. I didn't watch the 90s Knicks. I was just born in 95. But it stained a lot of the good. It was so uncharacteristic of him. I've tried to get past it the last few days, but it's just not going away. It's just Jalen Brunson choked. And there's no going around that. He was unbelievable. I'm not going to hold it against him too much, but he choked. Everybody has choking moments. But yeah, he turns it over. The Knicks had a bad air ball in there somewhere. The Heat pull away, and they win as the Knicks just simply run out of time. The Heat win by 4 points, 96-92. Again, I will say I'm glad that I waited to record this because, I'd be talking, again, not angry, but more in a pessimistic manner. But, here I am on Monday or Tuesday. It's Tuesday, May 16th. And it was a hell of a season, man. The Knicks had a great run. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. They had a great run. And anybody who doesn't think they had a great run is probably still dealing with the effects from Game 6. But yeah, if come on. You can't sit here and tell me that this Knicks team expected to win 39 games, I think, by Vegas and maybe touch the 10th seed. Ended up grabbing the 5 seed, coming just a couple of games short of 50 wins, making it to the second round of the playoffs in Game 6. That's a hell of that's a win. I'm not sitting here trying to be too participation trophy like. But sometimes you got to understand expectation because that's all what sports is about at the end of the day. It's all about expectation. And the Knicks' expectations, they weren't great. And they definitely exceeded those expectations. Now, next season's a different story. That's where we start to have some expectation. But if we're just talking this year, that's what this episode is going to be about mostly. It was a hell of a year. So I'm going to pick apart some things. I'm going to talk about some things I didn't like. And the number one thing I didn't like from this game, and a lot in this entire series, I didn't like what I was seeing from Tom Thibodeau. And we'll talk about that When we return from break, stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey guys, so if you are a listener of the podcast often and you want to know where to find me on social media, you can find me on Facebook at BD4. You can find me on Twitter at BD4Pod. And you can also find me on Instagram at Rob J. Carbone. All right, man. Welcome back to the show, episode 525. Listen, I'll get all the positivity out of the way here because I'm a big Thibs fan. I like Thibs a lot, man. He had a great season. He showed some flexibility. He was much more flexible and progressive as a head coach than a lot of us expected. I think you have to understand that. I'm not saying he's a perfect coach for 2023. And again, I've said before, I think at some point it makes sense to move on to a more younger, modernized coach. But I understand that. But I like Thibs. I would welcome him back in a heartbeat next season. And I think he was great. But I do agree with the critics that Tom Thibodeau didn't have a great second round of the playoffs. And it's tough. You're going up against Eric Spoelstra, one of the greatest coaches of all time. There were a lot of things in this game specifically I didn't love. Pulling Obi Toppin was one of the things that really bothered me. The refusal to go small time and time again since Thibs has been here has really always bothered me. We know he's a coach who's obsessed with size, rim protection, defense, sometimes to a fault. He's obsessed with his boy Randy to a fault. And again, we saw it in this game. I don't understand it sometimes, and this was an instance. Mid-second quarter, Obi Toppin knocks down back-to-back three-pointers for the Knicks. Helps give them some breathing room after taking a slim lead. And on his next attempt, he misses. So because he wasn't perfect there, what happens after that? He's pulled from the game. I was really bothered by that. Just like in baseball, I'm a big advocate for the hot hand. And it's odd. If I'm Obi Toppin, man, I've dealt with this so consistently since being drafted by the Knicks. I'm getting a little tired of it. And I'm thinking about going somewhere that uses me a little bit differently and can optimize my talents. I've said time and time before, I don't believe Obi Toppin's a superstar like a lot of people think. I think he's a solid player to come off the bench. I don't even think he's starter caliber because he doesn't play great defense. But it's just very questionable to me because Julius Randle was a team killer out there a lot of the time. And Thibs leaves him in there to keep hurting the Knicks. But because Obi Toppin goes 2 of 3 from three-point land in the second quarter, he gets pulled. So that it was just like that one moment, it all really came to a boiling point with me. And I was just extremely disappointed to see it still happening in Game 6 of an elimination game. And then later in the game, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the Knicks play and I'm like, where was Grimes? It's the end of the night, fourth quarter. The Knicks continued to be in desperation of offense. They needed offense. They were missing three-pointers left and right. There was zero spacing out on the floor. Brunson was being shadowed by Josh Hart's defender. And the Knicks left Quentin Grimes on the bench for the first, 10 minutes of the fourth quarter. He didn't come in until 2.5 minutes or something like that in the game. And the Knicks are already down 6 points by that time. And again, this was a problem this entire series. Tom Thibodeau's refusal to shake up that same unit until the later 3 games of the series. He had Josh Hart out there with the starters, which does not work well, and it hasn't really meshed ever since he's been here. He's a great player, but the spacing is horrendous. We've seen that. When he's paired with the first unit, the spacing isn't good. Miami knows that when Hart is out there paired with RJ Barrett, that they can practically ignore them on the perimeter because the three-point shooting from those two guys is mediocre at best. So it hurts the shooting for the Knicks. It's not a great three-point shooting lineup, but it also clogs up the driving lanes for guys like Brunson because those two defenders, Hart's and RJ's, are not going to be glued to them. They're going to be helping off of those guys and trying to stop Brunson. And this is a really big problem that Tom Thibodeau has to get in order by next season. He has to start adjusting to that in the future. Because it's defensive minded. That's why he's out there. It's not, he needs to realize you need three-point shooting, you need spacing, you need fluidity in the half court. Otherwise, things are not going to run as smoothly offensively as the Knicks think they will next year. Because the Knicks offense overall this postseason was not good. And it was very good in the regular season. But I had my concerns because of that style. And that right there was a very contributing factor. It was one of the main factors the Knicks lost this series. And speaking of lineups, that second quarter lineup was, again, Hart, Barrett, it was very inexcusable. It was McBride, Hart, Barrett, Toppin, and Robinson for a good few minutes there. The first 2 minutes of the second quarter, the Knicks were up 7 or 8 points or something. But he checks out Brunson. And Randle's already on the bench, by the way, and he's staying on the bench. So Thibs goes with Deuce McBride, Josh Hart, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson. That's the lineup he runs out there. In an elimination game, this guy can't even stagger his two best players' minutes, so one is always out there. And on top of that mistake, we've got our best shooter on the bench and our best passing big man sitting on the bench for this time also. This was also after Brunson just dropped a casual 15 points in the opening period. So you pull him when he's red hot. So there's nobody out there on the floor for a good 2 minutes and change. It doesn't sound like a ton of time, but during that span, the Knicks were outscored 8-0 and then suddenly trailed when Brunson checked back in. I think the worst part for me wasn't even the pathetic fact that Thibs had both of his top guns off the floor. The worst part is the Knicks didn't even bother running through RJ Barrett during those minutes. They had Deuce McBride running the offense. Their defensive reserve was out there with the on-ball duties. And what happened during that span? Back-to-back turnovers, couple of missed layups, bad fouls. It was awful. It was the most disgusting half-court offense you'd watch. It was a free-for-all offense with no game plan. They were running no sets. And that's Thibs, right? That's Thibs. He's never been known as an X's and O's guy. He's not. He's, and I don't think that style is very sustainable, again, in modern NBA. I think Thibs has a ceiling because of that. There's no half-court offense. It's isolation heavy. It's a lot of senseless wing isolations with Randle going one-on-one with Adebayo or Butler, which makes zero sense. It's obviously, give it to Brunson, let him save the day. I mean, when Miami was running 2-3 on the Knicks in that second quarter, the Knicks made no effort, ran no action, did nothing to try and bust it. I think I recall this entire game just one single time, just one time where the Knicks ran Isaiah Hartenstein in a short roll action. That's it, though. Not one other time did they try finding the middle to expose that zone defense. X's and O's. I just don't get it. There's nothing in the playbook. You open up Thibs' playbook and you won't see anything. It's blank pages. You'll see like SpongeBob trying to write that essay. Good episode. Kind of freaky, though. I didn't understand that. And one more thing. All right, before we get off the I hate Thibs bus, because I love Thibs. Going back to the end of the game there. Why are we doubling Butler? It's late in the game, and Thibs with this defense, he's employing high traps and sending double teams. And I have no clue why we've got Mitchell Robinson coming up to trap on those. You have to trust Quentin Grimes. That's your best defender on the wing. He had shut Jimmy Butler down this entire round when he was on him. I mean, I don't like defensive metrics, but there were metrics out there. Knicks Muse was posting some stuff. A bunch of guys on Twitter, if you follow Knicks Twitter, there were metrics out there supporting the eye test that Grimes had been shutting Butler down. But we kind of went away from that. And in Game 5, we actually went to it a lot more. But for some reason, we went away from it at the end of Game 6. We started doubling, trapping. All that did was leave the Knicks susceptible to open shooters because they were scrambling on rotation. And every time that would leave somebody open. And I know the defense didn't kill the Knicks at the end of the day when you look at the total points, 96 points allowed, and the Heat didn't score a ton this series. But in the postseason, you got to throw those stats out and look at moments, certain moments that you want to take back. And there were plenty of momentum-killing, back-breaking, game-altering moments where the Knicks were beat at the three-point line on wide-open looks, wide-open pathways to the basket, or getting late around a screen. Miami was out there looking like Golden State sometimes with all those off-ball actions. And I promise you, I have respect for the Miami Heat. Unlike 90% of the Knicks fan base did entering this series, and maybe some still, I have respect for them. But they're not that good to be looking like the 2016 Golden State Warriors out there in the half court. And I'm not blaming Thibs wholeheartedly for this all. I get that the players play, and stars must be stars. And we'll get to Randle right now in a second. But sometimes as a head coach, you see certain guys aren't playing well. It's then up to you to make the right adjustments and put these guys in a position to where they're most likely to succeed or more likely to succeed. And I just don't think that Tom did very well at that. When you look at his rotation this series, his scheming, his offense this series. I think that he could have done a lot more to optimize his offense. So I don't want to keep killing Thibs. I'm going to end that part of this show there. We're going to head to a quick break. When we get back, we'll kill Randle. All right, because that's been a popular trend lately. Let's do that. Stay with us. Be right there. BD4 is located on many different platforms. You can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. And if you do there, be sure to give us a 5-star rating and review. You can listen to it on Spotify, but you can also watch the podcast on both Spotify and YouTube. BD4 is available on many other platforms as well. All you got to do is search it up. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and much more. All right. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to episode 525 of the podcast. The Knicks drop Game 6 and conclude their season. But while we're on the topic of frustrations, the Julius Randle era, I think it has to end. It won't. It won't end. I'm 90-something% sure that it's probably going to continue. But I think it has to end. Listen, I really appreciate Julius getting us here. And he's been a big part of that. To deny that he's been getting us to the playoffs is crazy. Right? The Knicks have gotten to the playoffs now in 2 of the seasons he's been here. But now that we believe that we can continue to get there going forward, and I do. Now we're trying to take the next step and not just be happy to be here for much longer. Because that's what this season was. It was a happy to be here season. But going forward, you can't have that participation mindset. And I think there's a ceiling with Julius Randle on this team as a go-to option. So I think if you continue to have him, I don't know that you'll get much farther than the Knicks got going forward. So I think the Knicks have reached that ceiling with Julius. I'm not so sure we can make a run to the conference finals or the NBA finals with this guy as one of the supposed leaders of this team. He just isn't a playoff performer, man. I hate to say it, but he folds when it matters every single time. He turns into a complete pumpkin. I mean, if you look at the regular season numbers with the Knicks overall, Randle averages 22, 10, and 5 on 45% shooting, 34% from 3 turnovers per game. Then you go to his overall playoff averages with the Knicks, and that's what? Let's see, 5 games against the Hawks, 5 games against the Cavs, that's 10, 6 games, 16 games. He's averaging 17, 9, and 4 on 34% field goals, 28% from 3, and 4 turnovers per game. That's pretty garbage. And that's just bullshit numbers, too. Like, that's tangible shit. But you watch the games, the antics, the emotions, the drama, arguing with officials, arguing with teammates, arguing with coaches last year, arguing with fans, not getting back on defense, leaving his players out to dry in transition after a turnover. I'm just done with it. I just think it's that time the Knicks get a guy in there who's maybe younger, faster, more athletic. A guy who fits this offense. Someone who can play next to these guards and wings, who can shoot, run, move the ball around, fly around on defense, play hard. Because all this guy does sometimes is the opposite of what a lot of Knicks fans want to see from this offense. He slows the tempo down, and that allows the defense to settle in. And that is the polar opposite of what you wanted in a series against an older Miami team. He slows it down, and he lets them settle in. And on the other side, he doesn't play defense a lot of the time. He doesn't rotate on defense. He'll have these very, very significantly untimely turnovers and these untimely heat checks, even when he's cold. All the time. We saw it in this game, that 3-point heave. Crosses half court, takes a 3. It's nuts how he's got any blowhard fans at all at this point. And yeah, the worst part is that Julius Randle's head coach almost never holds him accountable for this. I mean, we've seen a few times. But I would have benched his ass immediately after seeing his pretty disgusting body language on that turnover late in the first quarter. But again, what happened after? Yeah, Thibs calls a timeout, but Randy goes walking right back out there, chucks a running 3-point brick immediately after crossing the timeline, and then a possession or two later, he takes a terrible ISO shot over Jimmy Butler in the mid-post late in the shot clock. I want everyone who didn't watch the game or anyone who doesn't remember what I'm talking about here to go back and watch that replay of the turnover. It's horrendous shit. I cannot imagine his teammates love playing with him very much. I mean, they're not going to give you anything to the media, but I just can't imagine it. Watch that play again. He's on the side, right past the half court. He's on the left side of the floor. He tries throwing it to Brunson, but there are like 2 Heat players right there. So the ball gets loose. Brunson's trying to fight for the loose ball. And while he's doing that, Randle's standing there watching it happen. And then Caleb Martin comes up with it. Miami's now running a 2v1 fast break because Randle is in that same exact spot where he turned it over, didn't move his feet, and he's just watching Brunson trying to defend 2 guys at once in the transition. I mean, it was toxic behavior. It's toxic to this basketball team, and it happens too much. This happened in a Game 6 elimination playoff game. How does that happen? How is that a leader? So if the Knicks are truly serious about taking that next step and trying to get to a championship, they've got to make those tough, controversial decisions. Just like passing on Donovan Mitchell and paying Jalen Brunson all that money at the time was a very tough, controversial decision, right? And look what happened. It's looking beautiful. That may be what they have to do in order to really take that next leap. Because it's just not going to happen with Julius. And that's why I don't blame Thibs solely for this playoff loss. And why I don't want Thibs fired for losing this playoff series. Like these idiots on Twitter and Instagram and social media do. Because at the end of the day, your star players, like we said, they have to come through. Because Randle was this all-star, right? He was this incredible third-team NBA guy. Where'd that go? Where was he? Where was that guy this round? So I'm over Julius, man. I just can't do another year of him. And I probably will have to. But it's a shame. Because I don't want the Knicks to become like the Yankees with me, where I have to trick myself into excitement in the regular season because I know there's a ceiling somewhere in there in the postseason. And I believe so long you keep Julius around, that's going to be the same thing. And it sucks. It really sucks. Because I just don't see it happening with the guy. On a positive, the question was answered without a doubt this playoffs on if we had a real star on this roster. Jalen Brunson was absolutely incredible. He is absolutely incredible. And he had such a phenomenal season going all the way back to the Memphis opener, finishing with Game 6 of the second round. 41 points in this game, 14 of 22 shooting, 5 for 10 from 3, 8 of 9 on his free throws. The kid did nothing but ball out. The kid is a superstar. I believe he's a superstar player because that's what happens in the playoffs. Look what he did last postseason. Then look what he did this season. Then look what he did this postseason. He is a superstar, not in the making, but right now. And all he needed to do was get away from Luka and run his own show in NYC. He averaged 28 points per game this postseason on 48% shooting. Stars bring their game in the playoffs, but superstars take their game to the next level, elevate it. Brunson is a superstar. I believe it. Short, simple. Nothing else needs to be said on his season. It was impeccable. The turnover sucked. Okay, I don't want to relive that any longer. It sucked. But I'm not going to hold it against him. Because again, one last time, he's a superstar player. I believe it now. I'm sold. Spoelstra said it best in the postgame. I'd be shocked if anybody hasn't seen that thing going around, that quote by Spoelstra. Anyone on social media, you've probably seen it. Shared it, liked it, retweeted it. Because it was on the money. But if you haven't seen it, somehow, just look it up. Just search Eric Spoelstra, Jalen Brunson on Google. You'll find it. YouTube, Google, whatever. Twitter, you'll see it. He was on the money talking about how is this guy not All-NBA? How is this guy not an All-Star? Because he's a superstar player. I believe he's one of those superstar players. You could put him in that top 20 category easily, in my opinion. Top 15, maybe. Probably. Top 15, fuck it. He's a star. He's a superstar. But him alone just wasn't enough because the Knicks, they didn't get much from a lot of other important pieces. RJ Barrett vanished in Game 6. But he had a good playoff, so I want to hold the entire thing against him. But Emmanuel Quickley's entire postseason vanished. And then he got injured. Quentin Grimes never seemed to find a rhythm out there. Josh Hart was great in the Cleveland series, but he was a little inconsistent this round. Mitchell Robinson had some good moments, some tough moments without Adebayo. And of course, Julius Randle just flat out pathetic. So guys didn't show up, and with that now, knowing that, the Knicks now have to go into the offseason this summer, make some changes here and there, and acquire some help. Get Jalen Brunson some help. And I think Boomer Esiason said it perfectly on his show yesterday. The Knicks have 3 guys who are must-keeps. He said Brunson, Hart, and Hartenstein. Everyone else, for the right deal, should be on the table. And I kind of agree. I do prefer they keep RJ Barrett after what he did in the postseason for them. But I know that they're looking for bigger names this summer, and he may have to be included in a package. If they're looking for bigger names, and they should be. RJ was 1 of 10 on Friday, which sucked. Horrendous, choked, all that. But I liked his postseason a lot because he didn't choke for most of the postseason. He was great. And he was so good that I completely did a 180 on the guy. I am keeping him if I can. I'm no longer in a rush to get RJ Barrett out of town like I was at the end of the regular season. Because he showed when he needed to show. And that, to me, that's all I care about. But, yeah, your next step has to be getting Jalen Brunson some help. Has to be. Get someone in there who meshes better with him in the offense. Get him an all-star player. Get him shooting, for fuck's sake. You know who I really want? He's a role player, and I think we should definitely add him. Dante DiVincenzo. Find a way to get that guy. Off-ball shooting, some secondary ball handling, some defense. And, of course, you cannot go wrong here because he's a Villanova product. Get more of those guys in here, man. We used to be the Kentucky Knicks. We're now becoming the Nova Knicks. Make it 3. Make it 3. I don't think he played with Jalen and Josh in college. I think he was a year... I don't know. I don't think he was with them. But put him with them now. Name me every Villanova player that has gone awry and hasn't panned out. Then I want you to name me every Villanova player who has turned out to be solid at worst. DiVincenzo's solid. He's got a championship ring. He's 26 years old. He shot 40% from 3 this past year. Get him. Go after the big ragu. The Italian ginger. There's got to be some Irish in there, man. On his mother's side or something. But, yeah, you need shooters, man. You need 3-point shooters. More than one, honestly. Like, I'm tired of the Knicks teams not being able to knock down shots. I'm so over it. Because we see it time and time again. Always. Grimes isn't it. He can't knock him down. He's not consistent enough. Not yet. He got hot in meaningless games at the end of the year. But in the important games, he folded. Like I expected him to be honest. I wasn't a big fan of his season a lot of the time. And once again, that problem he had in the regular season of being way too hesitant costed him a lot of open looks in this series. Especially that game 6. He had that moment in the 4th. Quickly, too. Hesitant out there. And I can't say I trust him like I did. Man, my opinion on him has come full circle from the start of this season. I was on his ass, then I fell in love, and it ended up being on his ass again. I mean, he's still got time to improve, obviously, but, man, I won't be 100% cool with Quickly again until he proves it next postseason. A lot of people want the extension. I say wait until the playoffs next year. I take that risk. I just can't. I can't after seeing what he did. He shrunk. I just can't go that route. He lost money to me. And if Quickly has to be packaged, see you later, pal. Like I want Jalen Brown. Embiid I'd take Butler, Giannis, Lillard. Maybe more realistically, Brandon Ingram. I'd welcome him. No Towns. I don't want Karl Anthony Towns. I want nothing to do with that guy. He's Randle all over again. He's soft. He plays no defense. His salary is bad enough, and it's ascending every year. He's a playoff loser. He's never won. I want nothing to do with that guy. I respect him as a player, but I'm not a fan of his game. Same thing with Zach LaVine. I don't want anything to do with that guy. But shit, when it comes to those megastars, you never know. You know, maybe Harden goes back to H-Town, like people were saying he might. Helps those rookies out over there. If he does that, I can't imagine Joel Embiid wants to stay there. I know he's loved in that city, but still, if he becomes available, the Knicks got to jump. Maybe the Celtics get beat badly by Miami this round. I don't know. Jalen Brown finally asks out. I know there was a lot of drama there with him and the fan base. If you got to do it, package IQ with Grimes, Randle, 4 first-round picks for one of those guys. Get me a megastar if he's available. Just do anything it takes. Don't pass on it again. So I know you have to be careful with moving too many guys because at the end of the day, this is the team that got you to round 2 and overachieved. But if it's for Brown and Embiid, someone like that, yeah, of course you have to make that move. Because those guys are superstars and they win. They'll help you win. I want Brown. I really do. But the Knicks front office is, to me, they seem to be way too conservative to make a trade. I think they'll wait for a free agency or some shit when someone becomes available in a couple of years. I think what's likely to happen this offseason is probably smaller moves for good shooters and not much else. I just don't see any major trades that got the roster because they see this team as a good team that got them way past expectations, and they probably want to keep every bit of it intact. It's going to be hard to trade Julius, but at the same time, I just don't want the Knicks to get too complacent. Because to me, I want them thinking, how can we progress and not just be content with being good enough? That's the tricky part. Now you're in this spot where you had a hell of a year, but you have to keep trying to go forward. You can't just be happy and let's just run it back. You got to keep trying to get better. Because remember, they had a pretty decent path this postseason. They avoided Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Boston. They got Cleveland and Miami, which they're probably the two softest teams of the 8 playoff or the 6 playoff teams. Miami's not soft, but they're probably the 2 worst teams, I'll say, of the 6 playoff teams, excluding the Knicks. I think Miami's better than the Knicks, but they're the teams you wanted to run into of the playoff teams in the Eastern Conference. So the Knicks might not get a path like that ever again. That's the things. Some things fell in their lap there. Cleveland was an easy sweep. That's perfect. That's our perfect first round matchup. Everything you could have wanted there. And then Miami, we wanted that. That was the route we wanted. We thought we'd run right over them and get to the Eastern Conference Finals. So we got to be careful. We might not get that path again. Because if we're bringing back Tom Thibodeau, and we are, the offense is going to be the same. Let's be honest. The rotation will still be 9. Let's be honest. It will be ISO heavy. And if we're doing this ISO shit, then we need a guy or two who's going to bail them out. A guy with gravity, whose defender has to play up on him, which opens up the lane for the ball handler. Or causes the ball handler's man to cheat off of him to prevent that open shot one pass over. We need a guy like that or two. But the thing is, if we get a guy like that, where do those minutes come from? Especially if it's in free agency. Where do they come from? Because it's got to be 9 guys again. Thibodeau's not going to run more than 9. He likes his rotation tight. So you got to find a way to shake up this team. If you have to make trades, do it. I'm not in this I'm content mentality this summer. You got to find ways to make the team improved. And it doesn't guarantee that the product on the court will be better because the product on paper is better. But it's a better risk to take than doing nothing. So I'll end it there. We might get deeper into that stuff. Maybe have an episode somewhere this summer talking about the Knicks offseason stuff, and we'll see. But right now I think I'm going to take a bit of a break from the Knicks. We'll be Yankees mainly going forward. But I appreciate everybody who stopped by and listened to these episodes. I really do. So let's wrap it up. Let's get to our trivia question. And from there, that'll be that for the Knicks in 2023 here. All right. We also have a website now for BD4. If you go to BD4blog.com, you can find the blog, the podcast links, and also where to find me on social media. Just go to BD4blog.com. Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. Let's wrap this up with our trivia. Let's get to it. All right, so for this episode 525 of the podcast, our NYY-NYK-MMA trivia question of the day is, true or false? On Friday night, Jalen Brunson became the first Knick to score at least 40 points in a Game 7. Sorry, I meant to say elimination game. Kind of screwed that up, so let me say that again. True or false, on Friday night, Jalen Brunson became the first Knick to score at least 40 points in an elimination game. All right, so one final time, episode 525, our NYY-NYK-MMA trivia question of the day is, true or false, on Friday night, Jalen Brunson became the first Knick to score at least 40 points in an elimination game. All right, so let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode. But we're doing Yankees from here on out, man. Again, we'll do some Knicks probably in between the summer, in some when things happen in the summer. We'll talk more, off-season targets and such. If any breaking news happens, we'll go over that. But for the most part, it's going to be all Yankees from here, man. We're taking a break from the Knicks. I need a break. But a hell of a season, man. I'm happy for them, but it just sucks the way it ended. That turnover is never going to – it's always going to be in the back of my brain. It's unfortunate because kid had a good year. But, damn. Yeah, hell of a year. So, we'll see you next time. Later. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.